Hello everyone, it's Brett here, Lionheart84, and as I'm still here, a bit longer than I'd expected, I've got the chance of doing my August monthly garden tour. It's the first Sunday in the month, 4th of August, so I thought I might as well do the tour. I'm not sure if I'll be around to do the next one, but we'll just have to wait and see. Anyway, we'll start as the weather's nice and I've got time. Thought we'd start with the medlar. Despite having some branches broken off it and some of the fruits getting damaged when the kiwi vine was cut away from the fence, it's still got a fair number of fruits on it, so it's not too terrible. And as you can see, the kiwi, which I now need to trim, has bounced back from being massacred by my neighbour, cutting things he shouldn't be cutting. But it's come back really well, as I thought it would. Doesn't take long for them to recover from a good cutback. I've got to cut some of these stems back because they're out of control again. Moving along, we'll have a try and have a look at what's hidden away here. Behind here I've got my in-ground citrus. Need to get rid of this bit of kiwi vine that's trying to strangle it. So my in-ground citrus is doing fine behind there. That was the one that was or is a Myers lemon. We don't really know because it died back to the ground a couple of winters ago, but it's grown back extremely well. Probably at least a metre tall now. It's stopped growing temporarily, but it might yet flush out again. No sign of flower buds on it this year, but we'll see what happens. Next to it, I've got first of my blueberries. This has put out some strong shoots this year. These are all blueberry shoots up here, so this needs to be cut back heavily because it's got a little bit out of control. Mulberry next to it is now finished flowering and fruiting completely. This is the little white mulberry that I've eaten lots of. As we move on, we get to my first in-ground name variety pineapple guava. As you can see, it's still still got flowers opening on it. This one is the Mammoth. Still got a fair number of flowers on it, but it's also got a decent fruit set as well. Not bad for the beginning of August. I'm very pleased with the growth on these actually, because last year they weren't as far advanced as this, so it looks like we might get some reasonably good sized fruits on that if the weather's suitable for the next 2 or 3 months. So that's looking okay. Next to it is another blueberry that's finished fruiting now. In ground is the male kiwi berry that I put in to pollinate this one here, and that's growing nicely. In fact, one stem has reached the top of the fence. I'll probably pinch the top off that. Next to it in ground is a Passiflora incarnata hybrid that I planted, but unfortunately it was completely wrecked by snails. Within 2 days they'd stripped it, but I've noticed it's got a couple of shoots coming up on it, so I'm hoping that those ones may escape the attention of the snails. We'll see what happens. Still got a couple of blueberries on. I think this one is Darrow, perfectly edible, but it's only got a handful left now. As you can see, my Angipanthus are in full flower now. Now next to those plants, I've got my seedling unnamed variety Feijoa or pineapple guava. Unfortunately, this one produces absolutely useless fruits. Whether or not this year will be the exception, they invariably turn out to be perfectly round and small, no bigger than a walnut, and they don't have a nice flavour, and as soon as you cut them open they completely discolour and go brown inside. However, where they are useful is they're great for pollinating my other pineapple guavas, because you can see it's absolutely covered in flowers. It does give me plenty of pollen. Next to it is my in-ground pomegranate, not a known variety as far as I know. It's only had sporadic flowers this year, which means I haven't had the opportunity to be able to cross-pollinate flowers. I thought it had set some fruits, but none have set so far. This one here is that's a female flower, and the one underneath it, I think is also a female flower, so typically enough it hasn't got any males on it at the moment for me to cross-pollinate it. Interestingly, I did notice one somewhere up there. There's a fruit that looks slightly, an embryo that looks like it's slightly swollen, but I'm very doubtful whether that's going to stay on, because the others that have looked like that haven't stayed on. And of course we're now into August, so time will be running out. That looks like a male flower coming up there, but they just don't seem to open at the right time. Behind the pomegranate I've got my Caesalpinia pulcherrima, which I just have for ornamental purposes. Has these lovely sort of tropical flowers on them. Tucked away somewhere behind the pomegranate I've got my sunflower pawpaw. Probably doesn't like the position because it never really grows much. Having said that, it's still looking alive, so I think I probably need to cut the pomegranate back a little bit. As you can see, my Campsis or trumpet vine in ground is doing brilliantly. It's covered in lovely flowers now. It's purely ornamental, and in front of that I've got the Buddleia butterfly bush. Next to those I've got this lovely sort of not really white, it's a greyish white flower. I think it's Atropanthus Queen Mum. I'll just have this purely for ornamental purposes. Then we move on to my Triumph pineapple guava. This was the one that flowered first this year, and it has got reasonably good fruit development on it. We don't know what size they're going to reach, of course, but it's got a fair number of fruits that have set, so it looks like probably going to have at least, could have 24 fruits on it, I suppose. Behind it I've got my seedling pawpaw, and that does have some fruits on it. I think it's got about, there's a bunch of 1, 2, 3, 4, there's a bunch of 5 there, which is the largest bunch I've ever had. I think there's another little bunch of 3 here, and there are 1 or 2 other odd ones around the plant, and this is the one that I've tried to graft onto. This graft hasn't taken, but I have one from that has taken elsewhere on the plant, and also there's a previous year's graft, which is this one here, and that's doing fine, so maybe that will flower next year. Looks like it has split slightly, but I think the graft's still fine on it. Got my Crenum next to it in ground, which is looking very nice, still pretty. I do like to have my ornamental plants as well. Moving on, got my Chilean guavas in ground. This is Kapow. It has got fruit set on it. On the there's 2 plants side by side. They've both got some fruits on, and the other one is Villarica strawberry. That also looks okay. So if we have a quick, let me walk round the back quickly and show you what's going on here. I've got in ground here is my Maypop, Passiflora incarnata. Looks beautiful. I've been attempting to hand pollinate the flowers with the Caeruleia that I've got next to it, and despite hand pollinating every flower several times, and the pollen is meant to be compatible, I've had no fruit set on it at all, disappointingly, and I did expect by now to have maybe had 1 or 2 take, and the bees have been travelling to them as well, but it just doesn't seem to set fruit for whatever reason. And as I said, next to it is the Caeruleia, and I've also got a more tropical one that I put in ground just for fun, which is growing very slowly. I don't think that's going to fruit, or flower I should say. And here's another incarnata hybrid which I've got, which again was savaged by snails, but it's putting out new growth, so I'm hoping that might survive and flower by the end of August. Got my in-ground cherry guava that had some cold damage this winter, although I did cover it securely this time, and it didn't take serious damage, but it's taken it a while to grow back. It's got loads of new growth on, but of course, as is often the case with these, when they get badly damaged and cut back by the cold, they don't flower. So no flowers on that one. This is my Gemini pineapple guava in ground. is starting to show some swelling on the fruit, so it looks like we're going to get some Gemini this year, which is very satisfying. Moving round to my jujubes, I did notice something interesting on one of these. I believe, because these have been flowering for several weeks now, I seem to think that yes, there's a possibility that a couple of the flowers are set fruit, and of course the only problem is there's one there, tiny little fruit, but that's definitely set. But the problem is we're already in August, so I don't think there's enough time for these to develop into edible fruits. The one that's set fruit is the Lee. One next to it, the Lang, which I'm obviously using the cross pollinator, that doesn't show any signs yet of having set any fruits, but if I just got a couple of pea-sized fruits it'd be satisfying. The Asian pear is doing nicely. This year I bagged all the fruits to try and protect them from codling moth and from being pecked by birds, and some of the fruits are really quite a decent size for the beginning of August, so it's quite promising. It looks like, all being well, as long as I keep them well watered in dry weather, looks like we might have some quite decent sized edible fruits this year. There was one fruit on my, I think it's a kumoy, and there's one fruit on that has more of a coppery fruit, so I'm hoping that's going to be edible. None of the others did anything. If I just move around the other side here, I can show you my bacon avocado seedling. This is looking amazing. Really pleased with how this is recovered. This is the one I got from Mike Gee. Lovely dark coloration on the newer leaves. That's protecting them from the sun. It's not sun scorch, but the plant has recovered really well from its transplant shock, and I'm hoping I'm going to be able to keep it alive. There's a rootstock jujube there. That's one that came up as a sucker from one that died on me a couple of years ago. Not flowering size yet, but I'll probably graft onto that at some stage or other. I've got next to it is my Grimmichama, not a hardy garden plant, but I thought I'd still put it out in the garden. This has flowered again very recently, but I don't think any of the fruits have set, because although it looks like it's got fruit sets on it, these seem to be all dropping off because there were several bunches of flowers and they've all come off now, so I'm not convinced that one might have done. I'm not convinced any of these are set. My Szechuan pepper's really taken off now this year since I repotted it. It's got loads of, or quite a lot of peppers on it, which are much bigger than last year, so we should be able to harvest a few Szechuan peppers. Look, it's got them up here. There's some behind there as well, but it's branched out really nicely. It's got a lovely form to it. I've got one of my Pennsylvania Golden, I think, pawpaw in pots there. That had no fruits this year, but my Prima does have some fruits on it, I'm pleased to say. Not many. I think maybe about 4 or 5 fruits, but the ones that are still on it look as if they're doing okay, so I think there's a likelihood of getting some Prima this year. This is one of my persimmons here. I've hardly got any fruits this year. This one is Costata, and in actual fact it's dropped, as they do, it's dropped a large percentage of its fruits, and when they're quite a decent size. However, it has still got some fruits on it, so I'm hoping that a few will hold, even if it gets look, you can see where they drop off there, but that one there looks okay. So even if I get 4 or 5 fruits, I'd be very happy. Nothing much happening with the figs. I'm not going to walk amongst all of the persimmons. It's a bit hard to get to them, but I've hardly had any fruit set this year. I think there's a couple of Giro, 2 or 3 Chocolatino, maybe a couple of Morris Burton fruits, but it's been a very, very bad year for fruit set. There's one fruit on this plant here. Not sure what it is. Let's see if I can reach the label. That says that's a hachia. I've only got one fruit on that, so I'm really hoping that'll stay, because I haven't had a hachia yet. Figs have got lots of main crop fruits on, but these never, because they're restricted in pots, they never make it, so there's nothing going to come of those this year. And I have actually got a handful of the fig trees up for sale, which I've currently got them on, I forgot what the website is now. I've got them on the London website anyway. If I remember, I'll put a comment on the end, or I'll mention later in the video. But I've got about half a dozen of my fig plants listed for sale, because I want to just make room to put some of the persimmons into bigger pots and move them forward more, because I just don't have enough room. So I've got too many fig trees and they don't really fruit well in pots. I'd like to move a few of them on. Moving along a little bit further, another pineapple guava here. I've got two behind each other. I think one is Apollo and one is Coolidge. Had a few flowers on them, so they may or may not set. Oh, Gumtree, I remember now. Yes, if you want to look for some if you're in the London area and want to collect, I've got a few of my fig plants on Gumtree, various varieties and sizes, but they're all quite unusual varieties. They're not like brown turkey or anything like that. My loquats are doing nicely. Seem to be doing very well in their pots. This pineapple guava here is Marion. Hasn't been happy in the pot ever since I put it in there. It never really sets any fruits. Only had about 3 or 4 flowers this year. I think it's terribly badly pot bound and probably needs to be repotted. I'm not convinced that fruit's going to set, but we'll have to wait and see. So I've got both loquats are doing nicely still. I've attempted to graft a persimmon here, and I believe this one, I don't know what the rootstock was, a lotus I think. I think this is a Garretson I put on here, and from the looks of this bud here and possibly this one, this might be taking. It was quite a big cutting I took off it. Not that I particularly want another Garretson, but I had a broken stem on the plant. I thought I'd make the most of it. Yeah, so this loquat here is Mrs. Cookson, which means the other one's Oliver. I'm just hoping they're going to flower for me this autumn and early winter, but we don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Moving on, I'm just going to dive down the back here so you can have a quick look at how my chocolate vine is doing. Come around this side so you can see it's absolutely loaded in fruits. I mean, there's just dozens of them. It's ridiculous. And there's 2 varieties here. There's the cream one and the cream flowered one, and the regular sort of dark purple flowered one. So there's probably going to be a mix of fruits here, and they look as if they're going to be quite a decent size to me. They don't seem to be bothered by pests or birds or anything, so we're going to have a huge crop. I mean, all the way up there there's loads of them. There's a Morris Burton persimmon there out of interest. Yeah, the persimmon's been a bad year this year, but I think a lot of them need to go into larger pots, and until I get rid of some of the figs, I'm not going to have room to repot the persimmons. And that's health permitting, of course, because I'm not going to be in a physical state to do anything like that. My kiwi berries, this is Issai. These seem to be doing fine this year. They're now grown to the top of the fence, which probably means they'll flower and fruit next year. Got 2 more Feijoa varieties here. One's Nikita, lots of flowers on it, and I'm pretty sure that some of these are going to set. I'm pretty sure some of these will set fruit this year. Let's try one of these petals, see what the petals like on this. Pretty good, really. This is my blue sausage tree. At least it hasn't died like the last one I had. It's not growing brilliantly, but it's not bad. Black mulberry, picked a few off of those for the first time. They were very nice. My apricot never set any fruits. This is one of my bare root persimmons that I got from Gardening Express. It's doing absolutely fabulously, so I'm very pleased with that. This is my Che, or Chinese mulberry. I've repotted that this year and that's gone mad, that's taken off, so I'm really happy with how that's doing. Bit of a spiky devil, but that's really put on size. I don't know how big they have to be to flower, but I suspect it might flower next year. Got my family apple tree behind it. It's 2 varieties. We don't know which variety is which because I didn't colour code them. I think one's a Braben and one's a Bramley. One of my persimmons I bought myself, which is going to be repotted this winter. They did both have some fruits on, but unfortunately they dropped every single fruit, probably because of the size pot they're in. So that's the vanilla, or vanilla, and the other one is a Tipo, but I think they'll flower and fruit next year. We'll see what happens. My Illinois Everbearing mulberry, had to repot it in the spring because it was very root bound. Has produced a handful of tiny little fruits. I mean, they are edible, but very disappointed, but that's because I left it too late to repot it. And behind it I've got the pink Moldovan, which also produced a couple of fruits. Another pineapple guava in pots here. I think this one's I don't know if that's a Triumph or a Mammoth. That one's Triumph. A couple of small fruits on it. Don't think they'll mature. Maybe that one will, because it's in a very small pot. This is another one of my bare root persimmons that came from Gardening Express. That one's also taken off very well. I did have a couple of goes at grafting because I had several stems in the fridge. So I tried a couple more grafts, but they both look as if they've failed. So no luck with those, but I'll be able to graft again on it if I want to, because obviously I've still got a root stock and I'll be able to cut back. This is one of the bare root persimmons that I got from Thomas. Unfortunately, we're now in August and it's never leafed out. Interestingly, it's still got a bit of green. When you scrape it, it's still got green on the stem, and even the, I think this is where the graft is, even the scion, it's got a little bit of green on it, but it just doesn't want to grow. And that's the second one I got from Thomas. I think that one was that's the Hanafuyu, and the second one I've got from Thomas did leaf out fine. So, you know, it's just, you just can't tell with these plants what they're going to do. One of my peaches or nectarines there. I think it's a nectarine, that one. Still incredibly got a bit of peach leaf curl. Even in August I would have expected to have disappeared by now, but it suffered from it very badly, so I'm going to give up probably on peaches and nectarines. I think they're just a lost cause unless you can cover them in winter and put them somewhere they don't get rained on. This was my other one, which is supposed to be a donut one, and again it's still got diseased leaves on it now, so they're a serious issue. And finally, a quick look at my in-ground fig tree, which failed on its Brabers apart from one, but the main crop figs on it are growing incredibly well. I mean, well ahead of the schedule I would have expected. I mean, the size these are, I would think that these are likely to be ready by the end of September. The rate they're growing. I mean, it's going to depend obviously on weather, because we don't know what's going to happen the next 2 months, but they are way ahead of where I thought. Let me have a walk round this side. Look, there's loads and loads and loads of figs on it, and they are a very good size for the beginning of August, so I think that these should be ready in about 8 weeks. Now normally this produces main crop figs sort of into October, but it looks to me like they're going to be even earlier this year if the weather's kind to us. And just finally, my Japanese raisin tree, that's Havinia dulcis. So that's a brief, my usual sort of 25-minute walk around. I've just picked on a few things that I thought were particularly interesting in the garden. Obviously for me the main thing, and proving very successful here, is the pineapple guavas. But when you see that that's still flowering and yet has fruitlets that size, these should be ready by probably November, I would say. But I'm very pleased with the progress of things this year on the whole. They're going to get neglected for a few weeks, but more about that in a later video. Anyway, thanks for watching the video. If you have done, much appreciate it. please remember to give me a thumbs up. You can share the video. I think anybody might like to see a little garden tour, see what you can grow here outside. Please remember to subscribe to my channel, and if you want to get updates on how these things progress, remember to click on the bell. I'll hopefully see you in the next garden tour in September if things go to plan. Catch up with you all soon. Brett out for now.